Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I am really delighted that you're with us today. This is going to be fun. My dear friends, our guests today are Seek Reality crowd favorites. Carol and Mikey Morgan are joining us for the 26th time, which is an honor for us and a really great treat. Theirs is, as you know, an amazing story, and it's a delight to hear it again. This kind of thing really does happen in the real world. Mikey Morgan is a genuine sixth level being who last had lived on Earth in the 1600s. So he was a very advanced being vibrating almost at the Godhead level. But he wanted so much to help us spiritually after watching from that level for a few hundred years that he did something which really his contemporaries at that level thought was unthinkable. But he did it. He chose to take a voluntary 21st century 20-year lifetime that ended in 2007 so he could teach us in the voice of a modern American 20-year-old kid. Now Mikey answers our questions about the afterlife, the greater reality, and whatever else you'd like to know from a sixth level being in the afterlife. The level, which is just below the source, I would remind you. He answers your questions through his mother of his most recent Earth lifetime, Carol Morgan. Even though she insists to us that she never would have signed up for this, but she did. Today, our guests once again are Carol and Mikey Morgan, who are with us for the 21st time, 25th actually time. I first met Carol a few years after she had lost her son, Mikey, in an auto accident. Carol knew nothing about the afterlife at all, but I have tested her son's knowledge exhaustively. I was a skeptic. I didn't believe this kind of thing really happened in real life, but I can vouch for the fact that Mikey is exactly who and what he claims to be, and I have spent more than 50 years studying this stuff. I don't believe easily. The afterlife and the greater reality are very, very difficult to understand, but Mikey knows a lot more about all this stuff than I do. I have tested him and tested him. I would not vouch for him personally if this were not real. He answers all my questions correctly every time, and then he often adds extra stuff, which I know is almost certainly probably must be right. But it's stuff I had never really quite investigated before. But it's always right every time. I've never seen Mikey make a mistake, and I've known him now for what, almost a decade. Mikey communicates with us now from very near the Godhead level, and his answers, as I say, are dead on accurate, pardon the pun. Carol and Mikey, welcome. I'm so happy to have you back with us. It's an honor, and it's always such a delight to have you here.
Good morning, Roberta. Here we are again from the frozen tundra that's thawing out gradually, but here we are. It's always fun to be here. We enjoy doing this. So thank you.
Yes, well, this is we're old friends by now, and Mikey, I am so I can't begin to tell you how happy I am that you're willing to trust us enough to talk with us. It's an honor, it's a thrill. Okay, let's get right to it. We have a long list of questions now, but they have just come from people who've heard Mikey talking and have just said, "Oh, I got to get my question in." So we have a long list of questions. We never get through them all, but we do the best we can. So let's get started. All right, this is an interesting one. Someone asked, "Are new souls being created all the time? How does this work?"
So I asked Mikey this question, and he says it's not that they're being created. So we're all part of the source. We are eternal. We are always us, or always part, we're part of this, of the source, the collective, and whatever. And so when we come here, we take on these life roles. Now, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit on this. You know, you hear the term, oh, so and so seems like they're an old soul. Oh, they must be a new soul. Well, Mikey says they're not really new as far as just created and they show up here and take on a physical journey. He says the more we come to this dimension, the more experience we gain and the more knowledge we have. So he says, saying someone's a new soul, well, you can say maybe that they're new at it here,
Yeah.
versus a soul that's been here a while. Because he says, when people say someone's an old soul, you can, I usually think of it like myself as, wow, that person really has it going. They know what they're doing. They're very knowledgeable and they have this aura or energy about them that they're just knowledgeable in these different experiences that they have here, and they handle situations quite well
Right.
versus a new soul that's not really new because we're eternal and all part of the source. So it's not that our soul was created right before we came to this dimension. It's just that we're new in the experiences that we're taking on in this place, because the earth is just one school, though Mikey continues to say this is one of the hardest schools, dimensions that we experience for spiritual growth. So it's not that we're new per se, just created, but we might be newer to this dimension in handling the experiences that we have chosen to try to take on to
Yep.
progress ourselves.
Yep. That's just how I would have answered it, but he does it better than I. Always. Always does it better than I do. All right, here's another one that's a little bit related. Can Are souls eternal because there is no time in the astral world?
Mikey says, the good old time question. It has the being eternal has nothing to do with time. We are eternal because we're part of the source. So in the afterlife, there is no time. And I again cannot wrap my head around this
Yeah,
concept.
right.
And I have given up on that on a personal level myself. But Mikey says our state of being eternal beings is correlated or be related to the fact that we are all part of the source. And the source, God, the collective, whatever word you want to use for it, is eternal. And we're part of that. And that's why we are eternal. It is not related to the fact that there's no time in the astral realms or the afterlife dimensions or what have you. So
Right.
time again pertains to this dimension and gives us sequence and order and such, which again, I don't understand how we just are. I mean, we're always in the present when we're in the afterlife or the astral realms or whatever. So that's what he tells me.
Yeah, I mean, when I sit and try to contemplate things that I think happened a long time ago, and try that yourself. Sit, if you're an older person especially, sit and try to think of something that happened a long time ago. And the more you concentrate on doing that, the more you start to question, did that ever actually happen at all? The more you think about something that happened, say when you were 10 or 20, the more you dwell on it, the more you realize it probably actually never actually did happen in the real sense. It's a strange thing to do. But
It,
tell
it's, you know, it, Mikey says we come here, of course, on these journeys for these experiences to challenge ourselves, to exercise our free will and progress
yeah,
ourselves
yeah, that's what it's
spiritually.
for. Yeah,
But even when I think about my life, when Mikey was here, it almost seems like, did all this really happen? I
did
mean,
it all really happen?
um, it's,
Yep.
uh, it's the knowledge that we take from these experiences ultimately that's key.
It's all
and
that
boy, I tell
matters,
you,
actually.
yeah,
Right.
that's what really matters and what really stays with us in the long run.
Yes.
So,
Yep. That's all that feels real to me. Exactly right. Okay, so here's another related question. Can souls be created if they are eternal?
well, that goes back to, we are, I mean, we're eternal. So, I mean, we
Yeah,
just
it's like
are.
a loop. It
It's
seems
like
to go
it's
round and
so
around.
he tells me I mean, he's he's trying to figure out a way to how do you explain this in for our
Yeah,
human
yeah,
brain
because
to
we have a little
understand this.
pea-sized brain here. Right. And then
It,
and
it
a
is
tiny
kind
bit of our mind, only a little bit is in there.
it is
Right.
kind of like a circle with how he describes it to me again because we're all part of the source. The source is eternal. So, I mean, we just are. We exist. And so the as far as I think we get kind of hung up in certain words as far as created or new or
Yes.
whatever, because
Yes,
when we
exactly
come
right.
to the earth, Mikey says, Mom, you're a baby. You start out, which a baby to me is new in the physical sense, but
Yep.
on the soul level, Mikey says, you're not new.
Never.
Your
Yes.
earthly shell may be new, but we're not new or newly created because we already were or are or we are we're in the present when we come here. So it's again, we get hung up, I think, in the rules and regulations of in the laws of time, and so that's why we think that way, but we really aren't created because we already are,
We already are.
according to
We
Mikey.
eternally are because there is no such thing as time. So there was no start and there was no end. It's a question. It would seem that if there is no time, then there is no beginning or end. Is that correct?
Technically, no. And certainly not in the afterlife astral dimensions. I mean, Mikey says there really is no beginning or end. It just is. But here, definitely, there's a beginning and end to our journeys and our lifetimes
Right.
every time we come. So it's again, it's an interesting concept, and it's hard for certainly for me to wrap my head around it, but Mikey tries to explain it to me in the easiest way possible.
At other times,
So
he has told us that we don't bring our whole minds, our whole conscious minds, into our lifetimes. And that is information that has come from other sources as well. The guess is between 30 and 40% of our vast eternal minds we actively have access to when we're here. And that being the case, it's very hard for us to really we don't even have the ability to wrap our eternal minds around these, what are huge concepts and are foreign concepts, really, because here we very much are in a beginning and ending situation. So, yeah, these do make our eyes cross. Some of these concepts do make our eyes cross.
well, and Roberta, what you were talking about there, Mikey describes as our higher self. So our
Yeah,
higher self, and he refers to that always as think of it as your suitcase of knowledge that
yes,
you've gained along all your experiences that still is in the afterlife.
yes, you packed it and you put it away.
You put it away. And then we add to that as we go. But that whole suitcase doesn't come with us on our trips when we come here to Earth.
That's right. That's how he describes it.
That's how he describes it. So part of that, that suitcase is still sitting back there. And Mikey says the purpose of that also is that helps challenge us more when we're here to progress ourselves more and use our free will choices more too, because we come here with these journeys and you kind of forget a lot of what you've already gone through previously, though,
Right.
sometimes that it bleeds through, you get these deja vus and things from previous lives, as we've talked about before. So,
Right.
but that he calls, that's basically part of the higher self that is back there in the suitcase. And that's why we do not come, like you say, with our full, total, eternal conscious mind,
Right.
according to Mikey.
Okay, this is interesting. Do most humans reincarnate as humans? What else? What else can they reincarnate as, Mikey?
Mikey will say, and he continues to say, that we come back as humans. Okay, so we do not come back here as a grasshopper or a rabbit or a horse or whatever.
Or
He
even a
says,
chimpanzee, we come back as people.
we are people. We are of, it's because of our soul group type or whatever. It tells me animals are of a different type of soul group. A grasshopper, insects, for example, are energy, he calls them energy fractions, or they're not of a, you know what I mean? They're not, it's just a, it's like a,
They're just a little bit of energy that
they're an
that
energy
takes on,
fraction.
right, or takes on an
Yes,
insect form. Yeah.
yes. And so he says, our soul group, we are of a soul group that we incarnate into the human form. We do not, that's why we don't, he says, animals are just of a different type of soul group. So our pets are a different type of soul group than we are. However, again, our loving connections with these pets and different things that we encounter in our lifetime here, I mean, we have that connection. I mean, there's still can be love there and a love connection. And so you absolutely, I mean, I know we've talked about that before, and I love that subject, but our pets are
Yes.
going to be there when we return to
Yes.
heaven. So,
Just the love connection you have with your pets, and I have
yep,
with my horse, make them eternal beings, and they will be there waiting for us in our afterlife. No need to fear that. No need to fear that they won't be there. If you love that being, that dog, that cat, that horse, that they will be waiting for us there. So
and Mikey says, that's it because in the afterlife, just love is really what it's all about. I mean,
love
those
is
connections
all.
never end, they are eternal.
Yes. And what makes them eternal is our love. It's so that's I mean, if ever there were any evidence that God loves you infinitely, what else could there be other than the fact that you get to keep your pets in the afterlife? Oh my goodness, God loves you so much. God would never allow your animals to die. I mean, just think about that. Okay. Do beings from all sorts of planets intermingle in the afterlife? Are you going to get to, meet a gray in the afterlife?
According to Mikey, he says, yes, you can mingle and meet these other entities for sure in the afterlife. Um,
Really? I didn't know
that's what
that.
he
That's
says. He
news
says you can
to
meet them.
me.
Sure, you can. And
Hey,
he talks
are they
about,
friendly though, Mikey? I don't know if they're going to be
well,
friendly.
some are, I mean, obviously, I mean, and I know he talks about that. There's Ishi dark, there's
Yeah, well,
Ish Pish too, but you
yeah,
don't have to be with that either. It's all, that's a choice, obviously, but Mikey says you can meet these other entities. Yes, they're all part of the source. So, I know we've talked about extraterrestrials before, but I mean, they are part of the source. They're on a journey. We're all on journeys and doing different things to progress ourselves. And so we can meet them. Yes. According to Mikey, he says, yes, we can meet them if we want to. And,
fascinating.
he says some of these entities are very, brilliant and very wise beings. So, I mean, we can intermix. I mean, it's all about different soul groups and whatever, but we are all part of the source. So we can mingle. We
So,
can meet
because
them.
a lot of people like to travel, especially when they soon after they get home, when they once they've reunited with their pets and they've got a pet sitter. And once they've, reunited with all the people from this life and previous lives, sometimes they and a buddy or two will go traveling, and you can go traveling anywhere in the universe, this universe and other universes. It's amazing how you can travel reportedly in the greater astral plane. It's the size of the this universe and more. So you're saying you can go meet the friendlies and the not so friendlies if you want to, right?
That's what he tells me. I mean, he, of course, doesn't want to meet the not so friendlies, but you can meet the friendlies, yes, if you want to.
Wow.
And he says that what you can experience. I mean, I can't. Again, as a human being, I can't wrap my head around this anyhow. But he says you just can't even imagine what's out here, you know? And again, I don't know, like I'm looking at some of these questions that this person sent in, they use the word universe, but Mikey a lot of times uses the words dimensions because
Yeah, much bigger than the universe.
it's
Yep.
much bigger and the dimensions are related to vibration and whatever. And so
So they're
like so
multiply
it
the
gets a little
universe
confusing.
by 1,000 times because they're all different vibrations too. Each of those vibrations is a whole size of many universes. It's just
Right. So
unthinkably
it has
gigantic.
to do with the vibration. So he refers to it more as dimensions,
Yes.
but so like the universe here is like he refers to it as that is just this dimension. He
Wow.
considers it this dimension
Wow.
versus, the vast everything that's out there, you
Yes.
know, it
Yes.
just
Yes. Yes.
goes and goes and goes, apparently.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it,
I
Roberta. I
know none of
cannot.
us can really can. Oh, Carol, it's so gigantically huge, and it's none of us can wrap our minds around it. But to know that as long as we stay toward the upper levels rather than the lower levels, we're quite safe and we're quite happy. Oh, my goodness. Are the number of planets that have life in this universe numerous, or did I skip one? Do most humans,
Um,
no,
no,
do
no,
beings
that's the
from all
one.
sorts of planets intermingle in the universe? Yeah, that we were just talking
That
about.
one we did. Yep.
Okay, are the number of planets that have life in this universe numerous or infinite?
So in this dimension,
Oh, is your head about to
um,
explode? Is that another appropriate question?
yes, so Mikey says in this dimension, so you wonder if there's life on Mars or like or what, all this stuff that goes on with space. Mikey says there's not, I mean, yes, of course there's life on different planets and such. In this dimension, maybe within our reach, maybe not so much as if you go into all the, I mean, and again, this is all the dimensions, that are just infinite. There's many planets that have life and we can go to for experiences and such. So, but in this dimension of what we can physically reach,
Travel to, perhaps, or at least,
travel to perhaps, he says not so much.
I mean, there
Um,
may have been life on Mars, but not within our, not
not
now.
within our right. So, again, but he says in the other in all the dimensions and then the universes of those dimensions. And I mean, again, it just goes and goes. Absolutely there is.
Yeah.
Absolutely there is. So and again, when we go back to the extraterrestrial thing, I mean, Mikey always says that's interdimensional travel. They are not flying in from somewhere within this dimension, but rather when their vibration gets close enough to our dimension, that's how they, oof, all of a sudden you see them buzzing around and then they can vanish just as quickly.
Right.
That is because of interdimensional travel and altering their vibration, their
Ooh.
energy. So they're not flying in a spaceship from some local establishment in this universe or dimension, or and those words I guess are interchangeable. And that's kind of what's hard with me with some of these questions when I ask Mikey, because he always says he's gonna say, like this universe is this dimension, this vibrational dimension. And that's why, for example, we can go like to what those space people were doing recently and travel within this dimension. But, other than that, I mean, because we're in physical form, we are limited to this dimension as far
Yeah.
as
Yes, especially, yeah, it's sort of like we're taking the milk cart route speed with regard to the travel we do, say from here to the space station or here to Mars or whatever. I mean,
correct.
we're going the slow route,
It's the
and
slow route. I
there
mean,
are fast ways that travel can happen, which we can't even fathom. That they can then go from universe to universe, but we don't even understand how that's done. There's no way for us to imagine how that's done. So he can't even really talk to us about it. Not yet.
right. He tells me, Mom, I can move in an instant. It's
Yes.
just like an instant within a thought. He says, I can
Yes.
move.
Yeah, he doesn't, he can't even explain it.
No.
We lack the communication skills, nor do we have the physics understanding that would allow us to talk with him about the ways that he could travel from dimension to dimension. There's no way he could explain it to us. People in the year, 35 would be able to discuss it with him, but people in the year 2025 cannot.
Boy, I
But,
better not be back at that time. I don't.
we don't intend, we intend to have graduated by then. I teach
I
classes
want to
in
be
that, how
done.
to make this your last Earth lifetime so you don't have to keep coming back. Jesus taught classes, which is the class that I teach about that. But yeah, it's time to graduate, everybody, because you don't have to keep coming back if you don't want to. But anyway, so let's go to the next question. Are we meant to communicate with other life forms even in this universe? Are we meant to communicate with these other life forms? Is
You
that God,
know,
is that God's intention?
it, what we achieve here is what we achieve, I guess. And are we? I mean, Mikey said, we are only when we are in human form, we are only capable of so much. So what we have accomplished here is kind of where it's at, I guess. Are we meant to have more? I mean, he really didn't. He just said, what we achieve here is what we achieve here, and our connections are our connections. I mean, I mean, he really, he just said, I don't know, Mom, that you're meant to achieve. I mean, what you are physically capable of is what you're physically capable of,
Yeah,
capable of, and really no more. I mean, we can't. so as
It's
far as what
okay if
we're
you can, but it's okay if you can't. That's
right, I mean,
kind of
as
what
far
he's,
as it being meant,
yeah.
what we can, we're, because we're human, I mean, that puts a limitation on us. And Mikey says that limits you. I mean, we
Yep.
can only do so much. We can only travel in space so much. I mean, and as we progress, maybe that changes. But as far as if we're meant, what's Mikey says, what's more meant really is our progressing ourselves spiritually. I mean, that's the
As
ultimate
much as you
purpose
can.
of why
Right.
we come here in the first place.
Once we graduate from having to come back to learn more, then we're able to be at a next stage. That next stage will allow us to do much, much more. That's what he's really trying to tell us.
Well, and think about how far we've come in the past, 100 years. I
Even,
mean,
right.
so it's just ultimately what we're able to humanly, you know, do. But in the long run, it's all about the purpose of why we came in the first place. That's what's really meant, I guess, according to Mikey.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Okay, so let's go back a little in human development. Here's someone asked, is the Earth flat, as some believe? You never know.
No, big no.
Big no, big no, not even a small no.
Yeah, that
No.
no,
The blue
it's not
marble is
flat.
indeed round.
It is not flat.
It is round. That's funny. Could be, you never know. It could be just a big stage. We could only imagine that it's round, but in fact it is indeed round. Thank you, Mikey, for setting the record straight on that. What a great one.
That's probably the easiest question for me, even.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's even a Carol question. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
thank
that
you
one
for
I
going
could have
that.
maybe answered that one myself, but Mikey did say no, it is not flat. So
That's hysterical. Okay. Okay, here's a sort of a biblical question. Is there a firmament surrounding the earth beyond which we cannot go?
Mikey says no, I mean, but again, as far as in human form, we can only go so far. I mean, I- so I mean, it's not that there actually is a restriction law that says you can only go so far, he said. It's just that because we've taken on the human shell, the human role, we only are capable of going so far. I'm assuming this person is talking about space. Do you
Right,
think?
exactly.
That's how I interpreted it. And Mikey said, I think that's what they mean. He says, there's no law that says we can only go so far in the spiritual sense. It's just that because we are in physical form, we are only capable of going so far, at least at this point. And maybe we go beyond Mars or whatever in years and years to come. Um, that remains to be seen, but he says there's no restriction or whatever that we're only supposed to go so far.
Yeah, well that's good to it's sort of reassuring. There's no sort of invisible shell around us, but it really depends on how fast we can get our spaceships to go. We should ask Elon what what he's working on, I suppose.
I
But
think he's busy with other stuff.
yeah, right. He's temporarily distracted, but they say that's going to end pretty soon. But still, it's I suppose in theory they could build a spaceship that will grow its own food and a young couple gets into it and they can have babies and raise the babies and those babies grow up to know only the inside of that spaceship and they can, it's sort of a spaceship Earth and then when the babies grow up, they're where are we now? We're in the middle of still in communication with Earth, but it's, light years away, light centuries away, and eventually we land on some. I suppose that's theoretically possible. I just don't. I think there is a practical limit on how fast we can get a spaceship to go and how long it can sustain itself out of reach of and what's more or furthermore what it can morally do in putting people into a sphere or whatever and sending them into space before their babies are even born and they have no choice in the matter. They can only keep going as far as they can go. I think there is a practical limit on what we can do.
Our, according to Mikey, our minds are only capable of so much, at least at this time.
I think that's
Now,
true. The smartest minds are doing a lot now, really
they're
doing a lot.
doing a lot, but there's only, I mean, he
There's a
says,
limit.
there's only, and again, this dimension is for our, ultimately for our soul progression. So
Yes,
it's not,
that's the point.
it's
Exactly.
not about, how many spaceships we can send off to, I mean, and I
How
understand all the
far they can
fascination
go.
with that. But
Right.
Mikey said the real purpose of why we are here is for spiritual growth. It's all, I mean, all the situations that occur here on this earth are very challenging and difficult. What do we do with what we're thrown? That's the real reason why we're here, is for exercising our free will and for spiritual growth. I mean, the other stuff is the other
Exactly.
stuff.
And where Mikey is now, that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Where he's vibrating now, raising our own vibrations to that level is the goal of every person now drawing breath on earth without exception. Whether they're doing other things too, whether it's Elon Musk who is doing these fancy, fancy spaceships that can even land themselves again. I loved watching that happen. Little arms reach out and draw it back and set it back down again so that we can reuse that spaceship. Nifty, nifty little thing it can do. But whatever you're doing besides learning to grow and learning to love and learning to forgive. Whatever you're doing besides learning to grow to love and learning to forgive, all those extra things you're learning, that's just icing on your cake. Learning to love and learning to forgive are the two things that are important. The core things you're learning to do. That's it. That's what Mikey would tell you. That's what Jesus would tell you. That's what the Buddha would tell you. That's what anybody would tell you. That's what your life is
That's
for.
that is absolutely really in the, at the end of the day, Mikey says, at the end of the day, that's what counts. That's what's
What
most
counts.
important. So all this other stuff, great.
Good that you did
But
that too. But
yeah, but Mikey said what's most important is that. I mean, we need, it's all about love and kindness and forgiveness and not judging others. And I mean, that's what Jesus taught. That's what Buddha taught. That's what, I mean, there's
that's
so
what
many
every
people
wise
have
teacher
taught.
ever has taught. And so as long as we're doing those things, if there's extra stuff you can do to contribute to the world, hot stuff. Good for you. You're a star. But if you're not doing those core things, then you're wasting your lifetime. You're going to have to come back and do it all again until you get those core things right. And that Mikey has told us that Six ways to Sunday, and these 25 times he's been with us before. And that's just the truth. That's where we are. So, all right. We got that was the firmament question, which I think was pretty interesting, but that's really the truth. What is the difference between a soul and the higher self? Oh, yeah, that's
So I think Mikey probably answered that question above with the other question is the higher self. He describes our higher self
that's the suitcase
as
self.
it's the suitcase of our knowledge that we leave behind in the afterlife when we come here. Yes, it is part of our soul. It is part of our consciousness, but that part of our consciousness stays back when we come here on our journey. So that
Yeah.
is the difference between the two. Well, there really isn't a like our higher self is part of our soul. So they're really not different. It's just that Mikey says our higher self resides in the afterlife. And he says, the easiest way for me to describe this to you, Mom, is think of it as a suitcase of knowledge where you put everything, when you learn things, when you come back and you have after your journey, you come back to the afterlife, you add to this suitcase or your knowledge of what you've learned this time around goes into your higher self. And I think, in Mikey's book, he talked about when he passed and he said he reunited with his higher self. That's at that point is when he had full knowledge of everything he was now experiencing again and what this life he was on was all about. It was at that point that he had full, complete knowledge of everything. But when we come here, because we leave that suitcase back, he didn't have that knowledge, wasn't fully, all of that knowledge was not with him here when he was here, if that makes sense.
And yeah, and we're told by other beings too that about 60%, hard to guess for sure, about 60% of your intelligence as well, what we think of as your intelligence, is left behind in that suitcase as well. So, you have an active ability that what you bring here, it's like going to the gym. You strip down when you come to the gym to be active, to do the things you need to do in the gym to grow your muscles and all of that. Well, that's what you strip down in the same way to come to Earth, to use the machines in the gym to strengthen your muscles. Well, you're strengthening your spiritual muscles when you come to Earth. And that's the part of your mind that you bring to Earth, the active part of your mind. Everything else you leave behind in that suitcase. And that's why suddenly, and this is beautifully described in Flying High in Spirit, which is Mikey's book. He describes how suddenly he was aware of so much more and he was smarter in every way. He describes coming back into that suitcase full of experiences and knowledge and just being so much smarter. He describes coming back into his higher self. And so will you. You will have that same sense of suddenly being back into who you really are, almost immediately when you come back into the afterlife. Great experience coming back into who you really are. I love it when we get together again, the three of us. It must be
It's
wonderful
always
that you,
interesting.
it must
But
be great though to have him with you all the time. I just love that
oh,
feeling.
I know. I always say he sits on my right shoulder,
Yeah.
and he can be close within an instant, and so I ask for us. I'm constantly talking to him, probably drive him crazy, but he's okay with it, you know.
But that's
So,
how people who have a spirit guide they're close to, as I am with my Thomas, same kind of experience. It did I I talk with him all the time. He talks to me. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. But it's hard for people who don't have as close a relationship as you have with Mikey. It's hard to develop that experience. I've tried to teach people how to do it, and it's very difficult. Thomas has developed it for me, and so I'm close to him all the time. I love he's talking to me now. I do love that experience though. It's a great thing. It's like your best friend is with you all the time. It's a great, very
Well,
great.
and it's I know there's a book out there that's called Broken Open or something like that. And I know with myself, I obviously was not at all like this, totally clueless to all of this. And then I went through the tragedy of the loss of Mikey, of my son, and it's like it broke me open to things I never noticed before. Now, were these things occurring before? They could have been, some of it type of thing could have been occurring before, and I was totally oblivious to it.
That's it. That's the difference.
Now
Um,
I'm not. I mean, now I'm just really really aware of what's happening around me. I've just become so much more in tuned to
yes.
things than ever before. But it was like I had to go through, which is unfortunate, I guess, that I had to go through something so difficult
Oh,
to
yes.
get me where I am today. But where I am today now, for me personally, is a miracle. I will say this forever while I'm on the planet that what happened to me after Mikey's accident for me was a miracle. Absolutely a miracle because I never thought something like this was even possible.
No,
So,
it's hard to describe. I have tried to describe to people what it feels like to have this kind of relationship with someone in spirit, not in a body. And it is very difficult to describe it. It is such a glorious thing to talk to him first thing in the morning, to say, I need a little more sleep. Please let me have a little more sleep. And then I'm out like a light. I mean, it's just, it's such a, it's such a wonderful one. It's to ask him a question and then I know the answer to the question. It's just such a, so I understand that this is a relationship and to know that he's alive. That's the thing. He's alive. He's
I
not.
know he's alive. Yes, for sure, without a doubt. And I know I just I've learned so much, so I'll tell people, I went through a life experience that ended up challenging my old belief system of what I grew up with because what I was experiencing wasn't matching the old rules and regulations. And I knew it was my son. Sister Joan and Father Dave told me it was my son. And it challenged me. And that's ultimately what has brought me to how I am today, and it just is what it is. I can't shut it off and I don't want to shut it off. And as long as I can keep helping people, that's a good thing. That's what I want
Yeah,
to do. So,
yeah. All right. Well, see, I feel exactly the same way. I mean, I didn't believe it when I first started working with Thomas, but he convinced me. And for as long as I possibly can do it, I will do everything I can to help you spread the word of what you do and what you can do. And we'll get it. We'll help as many people as possible to know who Mikey is and what he can do. But I just love, and we have come past the end of our time together. So, what do you want people to know about Mikey?
Mikey, I guess this time, well, I always say I feel like I always say the same thing, but he was a forgiving person when he was a forgiving young man when he was here. He was throwing some tough challenges in his short lifetime and he was very forgiving. And his love for music was huge, especially the lyrics and what songs would say. He'd always say, Mom, listen to the words, Mom. You got to listen to the words. And so I wish people would listen more to music. I think I'm especially a huge fan of live music. And I think musicians have such a gift, and music can help you, it can heal you, it brings joy. Dancing is really good exercise and it makes you happy. And so I encourage people to go out and listen to a little live music and see what you think. See how that can change your attitude on a day, make you feel better, more positive.
Yeah.
And you cannot believe how many lovely people you can meet through music. So
Yeah, he was a
that,
musician when he was here in college. He was a musician.
well, Mikey was a DJ. He was never a
Oh, right.
musician.
Oh, that's right. He
My
was
dad,
playing
my
music.
dad,
Yes.
my dad was a musician. My
Yeah.
dad played a concertina and he could play the harmonica. So I grew up with the live music thing in my home, but I have really come to enjoy it. And it's actually a huge part of my life now. I just love it. So I think for people, especially who are grieving and struggling, try going out and listening to live music. That's what I would say. And Mikey says, and a lot of times the lyrics can be channeled in. I mean, there's some beautiful songs with just incredibly good lyrics out
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
Mikey always says, be sure you listen to some of the words too.
That's right. He was a DJ in college.
Yeah,
Well,
and the songs he loved were they were major, some of the words, I'll tell you. So
I just have to tell everybody who our guest is going to be next week, but then I'll be right back, dear. Oh, that's just, I'm so sorry that we're going to have to, but we always have them back frequently. I just love our wonderful friends, Carol and Mikey. But once again, my beloved friends, we had to come to the end of our time. This has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm so happy you could be with us today, but please never forget, you are a powerful, eternal being, eternal. You never began, you never will end. And when you get what that means, it changes everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be medium and sensitive Mark Ireland. He'll be with us for the fourth time, and Mark has been a leader in the field of proving afterlife survival for his whole life. In fact, his father was Richard Ireland, who was a 20th century psychic medium. Mark also is a co-founder of Helping Parents Heal, which is a wonderful organization and now has more than 26,000 members, and it assists bereaved parents worldwide. And he has participated in mediumship research with studies with I think both the University of Arizona and the University of Virginia. He's the author of two very good books called Soul Shift and The Persistence of the Soul. I think you're going to really enjoy hearing from Mark Ireland again, so please be sure to join us next week. And of course, today our guests have been our very dear and wonderful friends, Carol and Mikey Morgan. They've been with us for the 26th time. We have such a long list of questions now, but we're going to get through them as quickly as possible. And just send your questions to info@robertagrimes.com and we'll add them to the list. Mikey is Carol's son, and he last left this world during his perfection time in the 1600s. So he's a very advanced sixth level being, near the top of that sixth level by now, almost at the source level. But he was so concerned about us that he did something that all his contemporaries, if he has any, thought was a crazy idea. He took an optional brief lifetime in the 21st century, something he did not have to do. He died from that lifetime as a 20-year-old in 2007, which is something that Carol said she never would have agreed to if she had had a choice, but she did agree to it. She had a choice. She gave her son to us. So as she says now, of course, it's something she lives with comfortably. He is always with her now. And now they answer questions for us. And I have tested him. He is absolutely, without a doubt, what he exactly claims to be. He is a beautiful, sixth level being who now spends his eternal time answering your questions. There are some serious questions that you might have, so just send them to me. We'll ask Mikey. He will answer them on this program and me in a future podcast. But meanwhile, Carol is just a saint to just share her son with us. And we just, I frankly, Carol is now my dear, beautiful friend. So, and so is Mikey. So look forward again soon because it'll be another couple of months and we'll have them back again. And which reminds me to just mention another of our wonderful friends, Craig Hogan and Seek Reality Online at seekreality.com. You are eternal. You are also going to live forever. So you may as well learn what happens next for all of us. Go to seekreality.com and learn the truth for yourself because all the news is really good news. And meanwhile, that's all the time we have. So this has been Secret Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all in this entire universe, in every universe besides, you in particular are infinitely, eternally, and perfectly loved.